after about 3 years, I started a little headhunting firm, placing lawyers with law firms and corporations, which I did for 14 years. Peter, the only thing I've ever wanted to do in my life was to be a writer. But I also wanted to eat. And I know how difficult it is to earn a living as a writer. So going to law school was kind of a way of me figuring out what I wanted to do. So I go to law school, and when you graduate from law school, you might as well do something with a degree. So I went with a big law firm. I was a trial lawyer, very successful in my opinion. I have fond memories of my law firm. It was called Squire, Sanders and Dempsey, and now they've merged, and now it's a huge, huge law firm. And I began writing op-ed pieces for the newspaper when I started my little firm. I was able to do well enough to have enough time and began writing op-ed pieces. I didn't have a deal. In those days, for you young people, we had things like envelopes and stamps. I would write something, put it in an envelope, send it to the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the largest newspaper in Cleveland and in Ohio, and I'd get back a little card saying, thank you, but no thank you. I did another one, thank you, but no thank you. I must have written half a dozen. Finally, they published one. And this is about 35 years ago, almost 40 years ago, where I said, today in America, racism is no longer a major problem if you work hard. And basically, I just outlined my dad's philosophy. They published it. I get a phone call from a producer of a radio show. They didn't have my picture there. He said, are you black? And I said, I've been told. He said, I'm a producer of a radio show, and we read your column, and I'd like you to come on and talk about it. I said, sure. I'd never been on radio before. I was on for a whole hour. Now that I'm in radio, that's a long time to keep somebody on who's never been there. Cleveland is about 50% black, so most of the calls were black people. And I was called an Uncle Tom, and a bootlicking Uncle Tom, and an Oreo, and a coconut, and the Antichrist, and all sorts of names. And it was the longest hour of my life. I remember driving back to my office, and I said, I'll never do that again. And the station manager calls. He said, you were amazing today. I said, I was? Oh my God. You have a good speaking voice. You took difficult positions. You defended them without losing your temper or your sense of humor. Have you ever thought about doing talk radio? I said, no. He said, I've got a guy going on vacation next week. Will you sit in for him? And I said, no. He said, why? I said, I don't like yelling at people. I don't like being yelled at. He said, are you married? At the time I was. He said, talk it over with your wife and call me tomorrow. I said, I'll do that, but I won't change my mind. I went home and I mentioned it to Cindy. And she said, well, what do you know about talk radio? I said, nothing other than it seems shallow, glib, and stupid. She said, it is. You'd be good at it. So I did it, and after 20 minutes, Peter, I heard angels singing. I said, oh my God, I could give my opinions and make a living out of this? And so I met some people. It took me about 2 years, but I met ultimately Dennis Prager, and Dennis Prager had me on his show. And the station manager, whose name is George Green, he's still with us, liked me, gave me a 2-day audition, and he said, after the first night, he said, do you want this job? I said, I think so. He said, well, go out, have fun, and don't speak so damn quickly. And so I've been on radio ever since then. And now I'm doing TV with Epic Times TV.